How's it going, guys? I'm Aaron from PhoneDog.com, and like I've said before, if you're on Verizon, you've got a lot of different options to choose from when it comes to 4G LTE handsets. You've got ice cream sandwich enabled devices. You have devices with QWERTY keyboards, with high resolution displays, with great cameras, with big batteries, and more. But you know what we do in PhoneDog land when we're trying to decide which one's the best for everybody, which one kind of has all those specs that everybody wants and everybody needs? We do a dogfight. That's what we do. So I've got two new ones with me today. The Samsung Galaxy Nexus that's available now for $299.99, and it's packing a 1.2 gigahertz dual-core processor. It's the only device right now to launch with Android 4.0, also known as Ice Cream Sandwich. Then I have the Motorola DROID 4 over here. 1.2 gigahertz dual-core processor, 8 megapixel camera, a little bit smaller 4-inch display, and it's packing gingerbread. But what it does have that the Galaxy Nexus doesn't have, pretty awesome physical QWERTY keyboard. Which one's the best? We're going to find out right now in just a second, my friends. But first, some love to Best Buy Mobile, because they hook us up with phones like this for use in our One Paw Bandit game that you can win on PhoneDog.com. When you walk into Best Buy Mobile, regardless of which phone you get, they'll help you walk out working. They'll help you set up your email, your web, your camera settings, your call settings. So when you walk out the door, the phone's ready to go. You don't have to waste time setting up anything. At Best Buy Mobile, you walk out working. Let's take a look. On to part two, let's take a look at the browser on both of these devices, because you're running 4G LTE capabilities on both, though the price point's a little bit different. I talked about this briefly in part one, but you've got a $299 price point over here, $199 price point for the Motorola DROID 4. Let's go into PhoneDog.com, take a look at that and see how it loads up. Now, Verizon's 4G LTE, at least in the Charlotte metro area, I've noticed over the course of a couple of months, it's getting more and more saturated. I'm seeing speed, you know, when this network first launched, let me go ahead and load this up because I can't talk and type at the same time. When Verizon's 4G LTE first launched, you know, I was getting quotes of speeds between 5 and 12 megabits per second on the download, 2 to 5 megabits per second on the upload. That was what I was seeing, or what I was hearing rather, but of course the network was new, so we were getting crazy speeds, you know, 20, 30 megabits per second. Now we're seeing speeds a little bit more consistent. I'm seeing a lot of 5 to 12 megabit per second speeds, depending on the day, though I have seen bursts of up to, you know, 18, 20 megabits per second. So pinch to zoom, relatively responsive on both of these devices, although I have a feeling it's that T-Mobile commercial and or T-Mobile ad in the bottom corner that's causing this issue. Let's see if I can get this to go away. Let's go back over here and hide. And so let's see what we've got here. We'll load up Sydney's challenge, and then we'll load up the same thing over here so we can do a comparison. Now, one thing I really like, this is a nice little desktop browsing experience. You've got your tabs here, so I want to go and switch tabs. I can easily do it back and forth through there, and I can add new tabs, I can bookmark, or I can use these little three dots. Now you'll notice, and you may have wondered from part one, if you haven't played with the Galaxy Nexus, you're like, well, where's the menu button? Because you've got, you know, a dedicated menu button on older Android devices. The menu button are these little three dots, or is these little three dots rather, up here in the top right hand corner. Now the real kind of challenge, at least right now with Android 4.0, is it's not standardized. So depending on what application you're in, you may see those three dots down here by the on-screen buttons. You may see them a little bit above the on-screen buttons. You may see them up here depending on which application you're in. You know, for example, I can go away from the browser, and I'm getting a little bit off track here, but I can go over from the browser to TweetDeck, and I can see, you know, you can see the three dots are down at the bottom now. So it just changes depending on which application it is. I can go into Contacts, and you can see down at the bottom, but still above the actual on-screen button. So it just differs depending on where you're at. There's no standardization there, which for a lot of people, you know, if you're a stickler for standardization, it could be a little bit of an issue. But pinch to zoom, relatively responsive here. The Galaxy Nexus has done a great job in the browsing department, but again, portrait to landscape transitions, nice and relatively fast, so you do see that little bit of delay. Again, they tell me that's because lost my train of thought, because that when you go from portrait to landscape and you're showing somebody something, you're in a car, maybe it's too bouncy, that's why that's built in there. Now, of course, this is pretty cool as well, and I didn't point this out in part one. The menu here, show you what the notifications bar looks like. You've got, of course, the option to get rid of that pretty easily, but then you've got a settings shortcut as well just above the date. And I like this feature also, not to get too far out of the browser, but when you turn it back on, I can access the notifications bar from the lock screen. I don't have to come out and do this. I'll show you. You can't do that on older Android devices. You have to come out like that and then go to the notifications bar. So little shortcuts like that I think they've improved upon in Ice Cream Sandwich Android 4.0. Of course, portrait to landscape transitions nice and fast over here as well. And you get a nice little transition effect there that even though it is a little bit slower, you know, you may have some lag from time to time, the transition effect kind of throws your eye and makes it look faster than it actually is. Pinch to zoom still responsive over here as well. Let's take a look at speed tests because I was just talking about Verizon's LTE network and now I'm curious to see, watch it be some crazy speed just because I was talking about it. But again, Verizon quotes LTE speeds 5 to 12 megabits per second on the download, 2 to 5 megabits per second on the upload. So we'll load speed test. Let's get it on the same server here, Chester, South Carolina. Load that up and you can really take a look here. Have a look at the Super AMOLED HD display as opposed to the QHD Pentile display over here on the right hand side. And you can really see, and I'm going to bring it in closer so you can take a look here, focus in, and you can really see the saturation and how the colors look great on the Galaxy Nexus. Over here, a little bit pixelated, not as great, of course, a smaller display as well. So I go back to my original argument. If you're doing a lot of media content, this may be the device for you. If you're somebody that types, you know, emails, text quite a bit, this may be the device for you. Now let's go ahead and do this. And I have some interesting findings that I'll tell you a little bit later in the video about call quality and battery life as well. So we'll load these up, and actually I'll tell you about the call quality right now while this is loading. Call quality has been pretty decent on both devices. It's definitely better on the Droid 4. Motorola does a great job when it comes to wireless radios, so if you're in an area and you live in a fringe Verizon area, I took these both to dead spots in Northeast Charlotte near the university area. Motorola is fantastic in the voice department, and even with a terrible signal, I was able to maintain the call. Galaxy Nexus has a little bit of work to do in the reception department. So if you're in an area, you know, you're in the middle of the city like I am right now in the office, you're not really going to have a problem with either of these devices. But you live in a fringe area, maybe you have 0, 1, 2 bars of Verizon service. The Galaxy Nexus is going to struggle, and you know, there's of course a different way that these are interpreting signal. When you see the signal strength indicator over here, even though it's showing 4G LTE, it's really referring to CDMA EVDO over on the Droid 4. So you're seeing the CDMA signal strength over here. On the Galaxy Nexus, at least as it stands right now, you're seeing LTE. So you're seeing your data connection. You're not actually seeing your call connection. So, you know, that's all well and good. And of course, voice over LTE is on the way. And then, you know, when we do get voice over LTE, that'll be really helpful. Well, we don't have it right now. So, you know, we pull signal strength indicator to me is a direct indicator of whether I can make a call or not. It's more important to me than data. So, to me, I would prefer them to see CDMA over here on this side. Supposedly, the Samsung's working on an update for that, so hopefully we'll see that soon. 14.47 megabits per second on the download, 11.11. That's pretty lucky. Megabits per second on the download over here. Uploads a little faster on the Galaxy Nexus as well. Now let's load up Quadrant Standard. Quadrant Standard has actually been updated to support dual-core processors, so we can jump in here and take a look at Quadrant Standard on both of these devices. We'll go ahead and run, and then the changes. Yep. And we'll run and we'll talk a little bit more about what I was just saying. So obviously, you know, call quality is going to be better on the Droid 4. Battery life, kind of the same thing going on here. You know, you got a 1,850 milliamp hour battery over on the Galaxy Nexus, 1,785 milliamp hour battery on the Droid 4. With the Droid 4, moderate use, I can make it through the day and into about 9 o'clock, 9:30, 10 o'clock at night with moderate use, texting, emailing, calling, downloading apps before the battery dies. With the Galaxy Nexus, I can't do it. With 1,850 milliamp hour battery, it's still, I can make it. I have to charge it at least once a day, if not twice. If you get the Galaxy Nexus, you're going to want to get the 2,100 milliamp hour battery that comes and is available at Verizon Wireless. And actually, they were running a special, I don't know if they still are, where when you bought the device, you got half off the extended battery. Take advantage of it. The 1,850 milliamp hour battery, unless you just don't use your device a lot, it's not going to be enough to make it through the day. If you look at forums, you look at threads, the two biggest complaints about this device, battery life and occasional signal strength issues on the Galaxy Nexus. So keep that in mind. You know, it's an awesome, revolutionary device in a lot of ways, but battery life is not its strong suit. So we're loading up on Quadrant Standard right now. So we'll load these up. Yes, and you'll notice that the buttons are flipped around on Android 4.0. You see the yes button was on the right side, still on the left side. And here's where you can really see the color difference between these two screens. Take a look at this, Super AMOLED HD as opposed to QHD over here with Pentile. And our scores are 1,812 over on the Galaxy Nexus, 2,238 over on the Motorola Droid 4. So in that particular Quadrant Standard test, the Droid 4 came out on top. Keep in mind though, take it with a grain of salt, it's really not indicative of day-to-day performance. These are both very zippy devices in day-to-day performance. So we'll take a look, 5 megapixel shooter over here, 8 megapixel shooter over here, both of which are capable of shooting video at 1080p. So we'll load up the camera, and you can see down here, we'll go in here and you can take a look at some of the gallery pictures. And you can see the differences between Ice Cream Sandwich and the older versions of Android as well. You got a couple of options to tweet, to share up here. I can share between my different accounts. I can trash, and of course my menu button up in the top right hand corner. I've got the gallery icon, and then I can scroll through and easily see my gallery right there. Over here, Motorola's user interface a little bit different, and we'll come in here and take a look and see what I took a picture of. Oh, the Ray-Bans the other day, that's right. You can see the battery's already dying relatively quickly on this device. Here's my gallery over here. I can scroll back and forth between these devices. I took a picture of a pen, a phone, somebody took a picture of my head, and I can scroll back and forth through there, and of course I have the ability to share, the ability to do some other things as well. Quick upload, delete, set as, all from the main screen. So a lot of different camera options on both. We're going to go back to the camera and take a look. One thing I like about the Galaxy Nexus though, the camera is a 5 megapixel camera, but you do get the ability to, and I'm going to bring in the Droid Razr Max so we can use it as a picture comparison. You do get the ability to do some quick shots. So I can come over here and let's bring it in on the Verizon logo. Let's say, and autofocus. There's no physical buttons on either of these devices, but we'll see. Let it focus in, and I can take instant pictures, which is really nice if you're taking a picture of your kid at a soccer game. You can easily, as you see, you can easily take pictures. So you've got some stuff over here as well. You can change the white balance, you can change some of the camera settings, ISO, and more. And you have the ability to switch between front-facing camera and, of course, video as well. I can easily get back out of that. Zoom in, zoom out. We can come in on the Verizon LT logo, take pictures of that, and then I can flip the camera around to the front if I want to, and you can see that beautiful mug and then the bookcase behind me that's chock full of phones. So it's a nice, easy interface, easy to use, and again, burst mode's really helpful when you're in an area where you really need to take pictures and take them quickly. Now over here on the Motorola DROID 4, we've got the same thing, 8 megapixel camera over here, same as the Droid Razr Max, the Droid Razr, and some of the more previous high-end Motorola devices. Take a picture, a little bit slower, but still pretty reasonably nice shutter speed here, and you got your settings down here at the bottom where you can change the white balance, change the colors, change the resolution, and more. And of course, I can switch over back and forth between camera and video camera over here and easily access the gallery. Flip back and forth to the front-facing camera, and see that, and then go right back to the main display. So comparing them side by side, I didn't take exact pictures here, but comparing them side by side, they're both relatively, I'd give a slight edge to the Droid 4 in the camera department. Although I will say, it's pretty decent over here. We'll take a look here. I really like Neil, what's his name, Matt Bomer's suit in that picture. I don't know if you saw that load up, but you can see here. There we go. We'll kind of zoom in and get a similar idea here. Great on both devices. I like the shutter speed of the Galaxy Nexus, but in terms of overall quality, going to give it ever so slightly to the Motorola DROID 4. Now, like any other dogfight, a winner has to be declared, and it's a tough call because, if you came to me and said, which device should I get, I'd ask you a bunch of questions. I would ask you, how often do you text message? How often do you email? Do you listen to music? Even though both of these are pretty decent at music thanks to Google's Play Music, and then, of course, the ability to download third-party applications like AirPlay, Double Twist, and more, which is what I use to get my iTunes music over onto my Android devices. So, it's a tough call. Got a little bit of a different interface on both of these devices, running older version, newer version of Android, but you got a nice camera over here and a physical QWERTY. So I'd ask you a couple of questions. Do you text message more? Do you watch a lot of YouTube videos? Do you do stuff? You browse the web where you take advantage of a larger display? And I'd help you make the decision from there. But this is a dogfight. This is kind of a generalized what's best for everybody. So in terms of that, there is a winner, and by a narrow margin, it's the Samsung Galaxy Nexus for a couple of reasons. One, HD display on this device is absolutely gorgeous. They do a pretty decent job with the display. It does only have a 5 megapixel camera, but it's a pretty decent 5 megapixel shooter, and it shoots video at 1080p and shoots in that burst mode like we talked about, which is particularly helpful. And a lot of the other cameras, a lot of other Android cameras have burst modes, but it's built into this one and it's pretty nice out of the box. Now, over here you do get 4.65 inches. Again, big display, great for YouTube browsing, great for web browsing, great for pictures, things like that. And then you got a nice, pretty reasonably fast 1.2 gigahertz dual-core processor as well. Downsides to the Galaxy Nexus, battery life is absolutely terrible on this phone. Take advantage of that 2,100 milliamp hour battery offer if they do still offer it at the Verizon store. And then over here, of course, you got a nice physical QWERTY keyboard. So if you email, you text, you do that kind of stuff on a regular basis, the keyboard's going to be really awesome for you over here because you've got two options. You've got on-screen and physical, so you can easily make a transition if you're coming from BlackBerry, whatever it is you're coming from that has a physical QWERTY keyboard. You can take advantage with both, and of course it is $100 cheaper than the Galaxy Nexus as well, which is always a nice touch. Much more coverage to come on PhoneDog.com with both of these. Keep it locked on the site, Galaxy Nexus, Droid 4 coverage, and more on PhoneDog.com. Like us on Facebook, Facebook.com/PhoneDog. Let us know what you think of these devices. Hit me up. Come and say, Aaron, I think you're crazy. I think the Droid 4 is better than the Galaxy Nexus by this much. And you can't really see me off camera, but I'm really doing a huge arm motion and saying this much. Let me know on Facebook, Facebook.com/PhoneDog. Follow me on Twitter, PhoneDog_Aaron, and actually follow PhoneDog_Aaron, PhoneDog_CEO, and PhoneDog for all your up-to-date information on PhoneDog. And then hit up my personal Facebook fan page, Facebook.com/PhoneDogAB. Thanks so much for watching. More to come on these two awesome devices. We'll see you next time.